Chapter 10. Escape to Rue Plumet. Thénardier was almost upon me when suddenly his wife cried out, "Look at this!" She handed him a balled-up piece of paper. "How did this get here?" asked Thénardier. "Through the open window," replied his wife. "That's right," said one of the men. "I saw it go by." Thénardier unfolded the note. He read it by candlelight. "It's Éponine's handwriting, by God," he exclaimed. "Our daughter writes." Okay, I'm going to sing this, okay? "It's the police, disappear, run for it, it's Javert." That's how it is in the musical. "We better clear out, we'll leave this mouse in its trap." But the mouse had dashed. I slipped through the window while everyone was busy with the note. I disappeared just as Javert opened the front door. Thénardier and his gang were caught in their own trap. Later, I would learn how Marius saved my life. He had gone to the police that afternoon after overhearing Thénardier bragging to his wife about the trap he had set for me. And amazingly, Éponine had printed the note for him that very morning to prove that she could write. When it looked as though Thénardier was going to kill me, Marius tossed the note through the hole. I ran to my house on Rue Plumet. The house was protected by a stone wall. Cosette and the housekeeper lived there. I lived in the small cottage in the garden. The next day I was sick with fever from the burn on my arm. Cosette nursed me with care. Every day she brought me food, and every day she read to me. I loved books about travel. Cosette didn't ask me how I got the burn. She knew from our years of secrets when not to ask questions. I thought life would return to the way it had been. Memories of the young man in the garden would grow dim with time. How happy I was at that thought. I felt reborn. But things were not going to be like before. Everything was changing. Winter was giving birth to spring, and new ways were replacing the old. "I want you to walk in our garden," I said to Cosette one April morning. "You never go there." "I will, father," she replied. "Spring is such a wonderful time." She was happy again, and so was I. I took my walks at night. That was the only time I felt safe enough to go into the streets. Just the same, I dressed as a workman. I felt even safer in my disguise. Then one night I saw Thénardier in the street. He wasn't in prison after all. What was worse, the family lived in our part of the city, too close for comfort. The next day I told Cosette we were moving. She grew sad. Her happiness of the last few weeks vanished. The garden had been good for her, but not for the reason I thought. In the morning I found an address scratched on the stone wall. The letters were fresh. They read, 16 Rue de la Vieille. This must be that young man's address, I thought. He is seeing Cosette behind my back, and he knows we are moving, so he gives her his address. That night I watched from my bedroom window. The lovers met in the garden. They greeted one another with such joy. Now I knew why Cosette was so happy. She had been meeting her lover every night. I discovered later that Thénardier's daughter, Éponine, knew the streets of Paris well. She had found our place and told Marius. We couldn't move somewhere else in the city. We had to leave the country. We would move to England. Because remember, they're in France. So now they're leaving and going to England.